Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. 6:08 p.m. I'm Mary Beth Fitzpatrick, Superintendent here in Royal Oak. Welcome to everybody. I'd also like to give our district representatives a chance to introduce themselves, so if you'd like to start, please.
Hi, I'm Mark Dajak, Superintendent of Birmingham Public Schools.
Gerald Hill, Superintendent, West Bloomfield School District.
Martin Lindberg, Director of Secondary Education. I'm here as a designee of Dr. Paul Salah, the Huron Valley Schools Superintendent.
Rob Glass, Superintendent of the Bloomfield Hill Schools.
Good evening, Rich Wachowski, Superintendent, Troy Schools.
And if I may, I'd like to introduce Tina Kostick. Sorry, Tina. Tina Kostick, she is our Chief Financial Officer, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, for Business and Finance in the Bloomfield Hill Schools. And Tina's here tonight in part because she's going to be my replacement as an interim superintendent starting July 1. And so she would be the one attending these meetings going forward. So I'm asking her to be seated here and not as a voting member, but just to become familiar and as someone who's intimately involved in the fiscal matters with the consortium. She might be able to speak to any questions that would come up in that regard. Welcome, Tina.
Thank you. So at this time, we don't have enough representatives from the districts or members for a quorum to vote. We're going to proceed with the meeting as informational. Number 2 on our agenda is the...
I'm sorry,
Please.
but might I, in case someone were to come in
Yes.
and we were to have a quorum, would we be able to add the approval of the calendar of meetings for the following year? Because that would be something we would need in order to comply.
Okay.
And you could add that anywhere you'd like on the agenda.
I'll note it as 5.5 after public participation.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2 on our agenda, approval of the joint steering committee minutes from March the 4th. Members, you have those in front of you.
Mrs. Fitzpatrick, I know we're not voting on the minutes, but did have an opportunity to look them over, and they are consistent with, at least from my perspective, with what was discussed. As soon as they're approved, they'll be placed on the website. Or we propose as soon as they're approved, we get those on the website, unless we want to put them in draft form.
Yeah,
In
sure.
advance
I
of.
was going to ask if you may.
Okay. I would be,
It's fine.
I'd certainly be okay with that.
Any opposed to that? And posted as draft.
Okay.
Any changes in that suggestion? Good to me. Item 3 on our agenda, public report of the subcommittee study, the IA Consortium Agreement by Attorney Robert Lusk.
Thank you. I'm sure you remember from our March 4 meeting that a resolution was passed that established a subcommittee of the campus host districts to review the IA consortium agreement, and in particular issues associated with the Open Meetings Act FOIA. The subcommittee asked me to help out, which I did, and we reviewed 3 documents. We reviewed the current IA consortium agreement. We reviewed a similar agreement, and not involving an IA, but a similar consortium agreement that had been used in Washtenaw County for similar reasons. And we also reviewed a draft of a revised and restated consortium agreement that I had drafted for everyone's review. There were areas of clear agreement. Going forward, the subcommittee recommended, and you have a proposed resolution that would indicate that from tonight forward, or from whenever it's approved forward, the International Academy and the Joint Steering Committee will conduct itself as a public body, meaning when the resolution is passed, as soon as we're able to, the Joint Steering Committee will be following the Open Meetings Act and will also be following the Freedom of Information Act. There were some areas, I wouldn't call them of disagreement, but some areas where we felt we needed to dig a little bit deeper, and I'm interested, obviously, in your input tonight, as well as public comments. One was the composition of the JSC going forward. Should it be all districts, as it is now, which is a little bit unwieldy, that leads to the kind of problems that we experience today with the lack of a quorum? Or should it be the representatives of some districts? And if it's going to be the representatives of some districts, which districts should be represented? I think there was consensus among the subcommittee group that the districts that host the International Academy campuses should be represented. But how many other representatives should there be, and in what manner should they be elected, appointed, or perhaps rotated? We weren't quite sure how to resolve that without your input. The other issue that we discussed was whether some or all of the representatives should be Board of Education members. People had disagreements about that. We had some financial issues that we thought needed sorting, and I appreciate Ms. Kostiak's help with some of that. The way we actually charge tuition is a little bit different than it's described in the current IA consortium agreement. And there are also some issues about reimbursement for districts hosting IA conference campuses. Finally, we came across a personnel issue. I won't get into it very deeply because I think it's covered by attorney-client privilege. But the basic gist of it was, should the districts hosting the academies be the employers of the persons working at those academies in all cases, or just in some cases, or not at all? One other issue came about, and I don't want to sidetrack the meeting because there's nothing that we can do about it. But you might know, some of you do know, that I extended my hand in friendship to Nancy Costello, who is the attorney of a number of people who are dissatisfied with the way the current consortium agreement is drafted. And I had indicated to her that I was going to solicit her input on these issues, and I called today to let her know that we were having a meeting, how we plan to proceed, and find out whether she was going to be here and what her thinking was on some of the issues we're going to address. And she told me no, she wasn't going to attend, but that one or more of her clients, and I don't know who her clients are, have filed a notice with the Attorney General concerning the Joint Steering Committee's compliance with the OMA. Didn't really provide me with much in the way of detail, and I haven't seen the notice, so I can't tell you what its contents are. But generally speaking, whoever filed thought that we had been dragging our feet, I guess, since March 4th in terms of making the changes that I was reporting to you today. So you know there are three things the Attorney General can do with such a notice, the first being nothing. The second would be to file an injunction and ask for a civil penalty and attorney fees. And the Attorney General could recommend a prosecution. It is, in fact, a misdemeanor not to follow the provisions of the Open Meetings Act. The first offense is a misdemeanor, fine of up to $1,000. The second offense could include imprisonment. The statute talks about prosecuting against a public official who intentionally violated the act. And to my knowledge, there is no such person in this room. But it was disappointing news, and I hope, having seen the proposed agreement, or the proposed resolution, which would commit us to following the OMA from this point forward, up and not waiting for that process to begin for the final draft of the consortium agreement to be in place, that to the extent the Attorney General has any concern about what we're doing, I think that would go a long way toward ameliorating those issues. So that's my report. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to field them.
Any questions?
Could you just repeat that one last part where you're talking about the 3 potential actions by,
Yeah, the 3 would be to do
recommendation with respect to those?
The one would be to do nothing. The second would be to file for an injunction to require us to comply with the Open Meetings Act. The third would be to initiate a criminal prosecution, and I spent some time talking about what the standard would be and what the penalties are. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I would like to, having been part of that subcommittee and having gone through some of those discussions, just wondered if whoever's here, Bob mentioned things that are in the resolution, so we can't take action on it now. But I would like to understand maybe some of your thinking or thoughts or questions or any input that would extend to around some of these topics, if you have any, or any questions, even entertain a little bit of dialogue about the composition of the committee, the size. Those are things that impact everyone, and so most of the people who were in that subcommittee meeting are fiscal agent representatives of the fiscal agent campuses, with the exception of Mr. Dajak, who was there from Birmingham. And I just, it's in terms of whether it's needs to be all 13 members. Are you okay with a smaller number? Do you have any thoughts on that? Are there? I guess I'm really talking, really just Jerry, right? Because I know you were there, Paul was there, and you're here representing Paul. But to the extent that there was any questions or comments or discussion or dialogue around that, it would be helpful, because I think the intent is to have the subcommittee really start working with these things. So it's certainly not today, we don't have enough people to really get the full scope of input, but it would be good to get that moving into the pipeline so that the subcommittee doesn't come out with a recommendation and then our council goes about drafting something and we're in a vacuum, out of touch with the rest of the group. I just don't want that to happen.
So I just have a question then. Let's say that the resolution comes forward and there's something other than the full number of districts in the current consortium that represent the board, make up the board. Then we have the other resolution about being in compliance with Open Meetings Act and FOIA. That new agreement, proposed agreement or change to the agreement, would be then approved by this body and the school boards of the representative districts, or just this body? Would be my question.
It's sort of a legal question. I think that it would have to be approved by the boards of the consortium districts and the joint steering committee.
And so that being the case, because I wouldn't feel comfortable making a decision on behalf of the West Bloomfield Board of Education, but I would certainly be receptive to looking at a majority of the members constituting a board. 7 would seem like a logical number, since getting a quorum appears to be a challenge from time to time. And so if we had a 7, the issues of how you select those 7, whether they're rotated, appointed, how that works is, to be worked out. But I would definitely think the host districts should be on that board, because they have the largest stake, if you will, in the operation of the International Academy.
My question would be, what is the mechanism then for the non-sitting members of the new committee? So let's say it's 7. Then of the non, how would the information then be disseminated, or how would things be considered for our input, since our students also go to the
May I again, and I know you haven't seen the draft that I've been working on, but the draft contemplates that the Joint Steering Committee will adopt bylaws, and among those bylaws, it would be appropriate to include bylaws that dealt with the dissemination of information to and from the Joint Steering Committee and the constituent districts.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions or concerns?
Then the other question I think that would be worth hearing the pros and cons on is the composition of the board, whether it's superintendents and or school board members, a combination thereof. And I don't have an issue either way on that, but I'd be interested to hear what the thinking is of the subcommittee whenever that kind of decision is made.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, you want to read that?
Sure, I can
Do we have a resolution? We can't vote, but we could.
The proposed resolution, whereas at a public meeting on March 4th, 2019, the Joint Steering Committee, JSC, passed a resolution appointing a subcommittee to study the IA Consortium Agreement and recommend such amendments as may be appropriate to address issues concerning compliance with certain laws and constitutional provisions. Whereas the subcommittee has reached recommendations concerning compliance with the Michigan's Open Meetings Act, Michigan's Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, and related constitutional provisions, and whereas the subcommittee has not completed its entire review of IA Consortium Agreement, it is resolved the subcommittee recommends, and the JSC hereby direct the subcommittee to propose an amendment and restatement of the IA Consortium Agreement pursuant to which the JSC will be comprised of designated representatives of the IA Consortium districts and will conduct its operations in conformity with Michigan's Open Meetings Act, Michigan's Freedom of Information Act, and related constitutional provisions, and it is further resolved that until such an amendment and restatement is proposed and adopted, the JSC will conduct itself in conformity with Michigan's Open Meetings Act, Michigan's Freedom of Information Act, and related constitutional provisions, including by posting notice of the dates, times, and places of all regularly scheduled meetings of the JSC for the 2019-20 school year on the premises of facilities where the IA operates and the website of the Bloomfield Hills School District. And it is further resolved, the subcommittee will continue its previously authorized work and, if feasible, propose an amended and restated version of the IA Consortium Agreement at the JSC's next regularly scheduled meeting.
Any questions? Okay.
Maybe just a couple of things. As far as that last portion, I think Bob alluded to that in his presentation. Should we not have another person come in here where we can't vote? You know, the intent of this body, or at least this resolution, is until this is proposed, it would be the intent of the Joint Steering Committee as assembled to conduct itself as if this had passed, and so the meetings will be open, and I'm in support of that. And so and to the degree that the subcommittee, needs people to continue to do the work or weigh in, not being a host of the IA, I'd be happy to continue to participate in that to the degree that is helpful, to that subcommittee or to the group.
Thank you. Okay, we've come to the public participation portion of the meeting, item 5 on our agenda. Our protocol here. If you would like to address the committee, please remain seated and raise your hand. When called on by a committee member, please come to the microphone, which is the little black box on the table in the middle of the room. State your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you exceed your 3 minutes, the committee member will ask you to please finish your comments. Please address the committee as a whole. Generally, committee members do not respond to the public comment during the meeting. When you're finished, please sign the sign-in sheet that is at the table before you return to the seat as we call on the next participant if available. Is there anyone that would like to address the committee? First hand here, Corinne.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rebecca Riggs. My address is 2969 Robina, Berkeley. I am a proud Berkeley resident. I am a teacher at the International Academy Central Campus and have been for 17 years. And I'm also a proud Rochester employee. And so I sort of span the gamut of the different districts represented here by the steering committee. As staff members of the International Academy, we want to thank you for welcoming us to this meeting. We love the IA, and we would like to invite you to visit our school community and meet with the students from your districts who are benefiting from this consortium partnership. Whenever conversations about the IA arise in your districts, we are ready and available to participate in those dialogues as well. We appreciate the fact that all of the districts represented here realize that education is not one size fits all, and that the IA is a complement to the outstanding programming that you offer in your respective districts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Someone else? Sir, in the front.
Ken Jackson, 4130 Sandy Lane, Bloomfield Hills. I'm a parent in that district. I've read most of everything about the IA going back to about 2007, including its minutes. A lot of it has slipped out of my mind in the last couple months. It does get complicated. It's a difficult situation. But let me speak first about recommendations for going ahead with the Joint Steering Committee. I think it's imperative that you have at least one board member, if not more, on the revised committee. I became interested in the IA. I'm not a parent. I hear lots of good and wonderful things about it. Education is tougher enough right now. We don't want to disrupt things that are working well. That said, I became aware of some issues at the IA, including a private school venture in China. As a taxpayer and a citizen, I was greatly disturbed by this. To my mind, that stands in stark contrast to Article 8, Section 2 of the Constitution. Those aren't statutes that everyone has to follow. Of course, you can get legal rulings on any individual case, but to me, that part of the Michigan Constitution expresses pretty clearly that either directly or indirectly, public school money, time, effort, things like that should not be directed towards private ventures, certainly not in another country. And I think that came about partly because the Joint Steering Committee structure and the oversight, including open meetings, just was not in place, and that's obvious again tonight. You can't get a quorum to sort of even move forward on what's going on. By the way, I understand everyone is busy. Their superintendents are complicated, hard-working folks, but this is something that needs to be addressed. And when you move forward on that committee, you need public input. This is my third time at a meeting. The first one was not really an open meeting. It was chaired by Lynn Gibson, the principal of the IA. I had to talk with Rob for 2 hours to figure out how to do this. I was asked to confer with the public school resource police officer. We had to change the meeting. That's not a good way for a public school district to function in terms of open meeting acts and things like that. That's a bad way to go forward. Second one in March, great. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you're sort of coming out again. But March, you kind of suggested a rather optimistic timeline about when you could revise the Joint Steering Committee agreement. That's tough. That's hard to do. You've got a document that was created more or less by handshake in the 1990s. The educational landscape has changed considerably. That handshake deal does not work for folks that want some oversight or some public input to what's going on to IA. Again, super glad the IA is functioning for a number of its students, families, teachers. That's wonderful. I'm all for it. Do not want to disrupt it. At the same time, I'm still very distressed that public school superintendents authorized and okayed the investment in a private school in China, perhaps two. So I don't know if dragging the feet is the right term here for my concerns. Okay, but I hope you move forward with this as quickly as you possibly can. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a reminder to sign the sign-in sheet on that square table, please. Another comment? Yes, ma'am?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Kreider. I'm a Bloomfield Hills parent. I am also a new parent in the West Bloomfield School District. I'm going to talk really fast because I just learned 3 minutes for the comment. Initially, I was going to come in and express some disappointment in terms of the lack of action that has been taken by the board, and wanted to also speak to the fact that there are parents who are not able to attend the meeting or community members who can't attend the meetings, but nonetheless, they're at home and they're still looking for some sort of accountability still today. I had an opportunity to have some reflections and actually decided to put some of my thoughts on paper, and it was actually thinking about the other districts that are represented here today. I want to first start by apologizing for 2 things. First, for Bloomfield Hills taking the position that we, are the best, and for individuals employed or hired by Bloomfield Hills who may have misled you over the years. To some extent, this committee lacking a sense of urgency and having confusion about the allegations presented, especially about individuals whom you hold in high esteem, is a direct result of pertinent information not being shared with you and possibly outright covered up. Our conflicts of interest belong to us. The lack of accountability for our employees belongs to us. The misinformation and misleading belongs to us. And for that, I am truly sorry. I can only imagine what it feels like for your employees to show up at meetings that they were assigned to, not fully understanding their responsibility and the operations of the committee, and to be uncertain about how to handle the lack of structure that was and still is the elephant in the room. I also apologize for the arrogance in taking all of the credit for the brilliance of the students who attend the IA Oklahoma campus. Your students' performance contributed to the IA being what it is today. The IA made us look like the best district because those who don't know better assume that the IA's success is representative of everything that Bloomfield Hills has to offer. I realize that your district also has something great to offer, and you haven't always received credit for the contributions of your students and staff, as we solely accepted the #1 or #2 ranking that you also deserve credit for. No district is perfect, and none of us here expect perfection. But we do believe it's reasonable to ask that you fulfill your responsibilities with high standards and a spirit of excellence. Please know that this is not personal. This is a call to action to use your moral compass. I remember when we used to hear buzzwords like win-win, and I'm not really sure when society fully embraced changing course and having more of a win-lose mentality. But despite being in the era of sensationalized rhetoric and talking points and putting image at a higher priority than transparency and honesty, I ask that you help us to move.
Finish your comments, please.
I ask you to help us move beyond Bloomfield's error in judgment and partner with those of us who also believe in you and want the best for all. We are not required to subscribe to a win-lose outcome. Win-lose is that us against them mentality, you being advised to provide the bare minimum legal requirements, or lying through omissions.
Okay.
Thank you for listening, and I thank you in advance for creating a win-win for everyone.
Thank you. Is there another comment? Yes. Please sign the sheet on the table. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Cook, 3856 Normanwood Drive in Orchard Lake. I am a Bloomfield Hills parent. I am also a member of the Bloomfield Hills School District Board of Education. Having said that, I would like to make it clear that my comments tonight are not collective from the board. They are from myself as a mother, a taxpayer, and someone who, for better or for worse, has had to do a lot of reading and research about the recent history of the school. The International Academy is a remarkable institution. I had never heard of it, much less of IB curriculum, before I moved to Michigan 5 years ago, and I quickly wanted to know more about it to see if this would be a good fit for my children when I got here. Today, I have an enrolled freshman at the Oklahoma campus. I am in the building 2 to 3 times per week, and I really, really like what I see. My daughter feels the same. Quote, "We're driving around unsolicited. Mom, I love my school. The teachers really care about us. I am really happy," unquote. I share these personal sentiments to frame what I am about to say with this overarching belief that the International Academy should be protected and promoted. It is a strong program with excellent teachers, one of them has spoken tonight, who really enjoy their students and prepare them well for life after high school. I think I speak for myself and everyone in this room that everyone wants the IA to thrive. To point out that the recent alumni who came to Bloomfield board meetings a few months ago to passionately speak about their problems and frustration with the administration and with mental health issues, to a person, expressed extreme gratitude and love for the rich educational experience that successfully prepared them for college and career. Events of the last few years have made it painfully obvious that it is time to revisit the organization and governance of the school. For example, at the 2 open meetings I have been to tonight and in March, the principal of the school is not present, and I see that as a problem. With a commitment to preserving the quality of the experience for the student and staff as it exists, it is time to courageously examine the structure of the International Academy, to include, and several of the suggestions which Mr. Lusk pointed out and which we have submitted to Dr. Glass to share to the subcommittee looking at the consortium agreement. Okay, number one, whether the composition of this JSC, as we've already talked about, should be to include Board of Education members, alumni, and/or parents from participating districts to function in a rotating capacity. Number two, the composition of the subcommittee, rewriting the consortium agreement, whether elected Board of Education members, teachers, alumni, and parents should contribute to enhance transparency and accountability. I've been sitting here since the beginning of the meeting, and I'm still not clear on who actually sits on this subcommittee besides the superintendents of the 3 landlord districts. I think that that should be made transparent to everybody. 3, whether IA should...
Comments, please.
Okay. So there's capital needs, there's whether the governance should be looked at from an Oakland schools perspective, there's conflict of interest, there's mechanism for filling vacancies when students by attrition go back to their home district, and there's issues of chains of command for projects larger than day-to-day operations. All of these things from the ground up should be looked at very courageously, and please know, in summary, that your community is here to help accomplish these changes in a way that is least disruptive to the successful school function, but which enhances transparency, accountability, and action. We are asking you to address this vigorously, and we look forward to progress in the near future. Thank you.
Other comments this evening, Chris?
Good evening. My name is Carol Finkelstein, 4372 Hendry Court in Orchard Lake. I am here today as an IA alumni parent with love, passion, gratitude, and respect for this school. For full disclosure to the public, many of you already know I am a board member of one of the consortium districts. However, I want to be crystal clear, I am not here as a board member. My comments and opinions are solely mine as an IA alumni parent and a taxpayer. This is the second meeting of 2019 with only one item on the agenda, the consortium agreement. I find it impossible to believe that this is the second quarterly meeting of IA's governing board in a row where no other school business is going to be discussed. IA students just completed IB exams and held commencement, yet student achievement, attendance, and graduation statistics aren't on the agenda. Application, enrollment, and financials were not on the March agenda, nor are they tonight. How and when are you going to approve IA's budget? Surely there are IB curriculum and CAS updates, professional development, the school calendar, staff evaluations, and staffing for the upcoming year for you to discuss. What was the outcome of the advanced ed accreditation visit? Do you have student discipline reports to discuss? Is the Prepare You mental health wellness curriculum working out? Is it benefiting the students? Is there more that needs to be done? Given the rigor of this curriculum, social emotional well-being should be an ongoing discussion for this JSC. Are there no issues regarding the maintenance of the facilities that should be discussed among the consortium districts? The International Academy is one of the finest schools in the state and one of the top schools in our nation. The lack of governance by this Joint Steering Committee is not only disheartening, it is detrimental to the IA and to its 13 consortium districts. In my personal opinion, every superintendent on the consortium has failed the International Academy, and you have for years. I learned of the years of neglect when the JSC meeting minutes were made public, and I saw the unbelievable lack of attendance. And again, you have no quorum tonight. For the past several months, the school has had a cloud of controversy over it, but what has the Joint Steering Committee done to address it? Like any other school, IA needs proper oversight and governance. Joint Steering Committee meetings are only held quarterly. Please help me understand why 13 consortium superintendents can't meet 4 times a year for this amazing school. You're looking at what, 10 or 12 hours per year, including travel time? Some superintendents have delegated the JSC duty so far down the chain of command in their district, I have to wonder if they even know what is happening in this school. How can you
Finish your comments, please.
I will. How can you expect the school to continue to succeed when administrators charged with governance continue to neglect it? The Joint Steering Committee governance structure clearly isn't working. Tonight's single item agenda is another sad example of why change is long overdue. In my opinion, governance must change to Board of Education members elected by the 13 consortium districts, and it is imperative that this be handled quickly. The local boards of education elect Oakland Schools Board of Education. It's a working model that can guide this work. The model may need a little tweak, but there is no need to reinvent the wheel, have numerous long meetings, or rack up large legal expenses. Let's get a proposal drafted and to the consortium boards of education where this discussion belongs. If you can't get the job done, I implore you to engage the IA task force and consortium boards of education to get this done. Lastly, I just have to, if you could indulge me for one moment, I just want you to remember this. IA students are your students. Your district gets their test scores, you sign their diplomas, and you walk them at graduation. You send members of your staff to teach at IA. Despite the distance, they're still your staff.
Thank you.
Your families are your families. So we deserve engaged leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, sir?
Good evening. My name is Chris Smith. I'm the Associate Principal at the Oakland campus. Carol brought up a lot of great points about this information we presented. I just want to make it clear the IA administrative team, we're more than happy to provide regular statistical updates on all the things that were mentioned, enrollment projections, status of the campuses, recent events like graduation, things like that. So I know there's been a lot of people's plates to the consortium agreement, but I just want to make it clear for future meetings, we'd be more than happy to provide those regular updates at each of the quarterly meetings regarding happenings at the 3 campuses.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yep, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Layla Owens. I'm a recent graduate of the Okama campus and coming off of a fellowship in India. We'll be starting at Princeton in the fall. And I apologize because I don't have any remarks written, but I feel it's my responsibility to come here today and talk to you about responsibility. Because I can't say for anyone else, but personally, I feel let down. I feel let down by all of you here and those not present. Because this is our school, our students' lives. Like, we're talking about how this will impact, everyone else but the students, And back in 2014, I tried to go to a Joint Steering Committee meeting, was turned away, and filed a complaint with Nancy Costello, very helpfully, reached out to the Michigan State Student Clinic, and we received nothing. And I think that this is a problem that's been going on for years, and we must acknowledge that, and there's no point waiting around for this new consortium agreement when we already have one that gives you responsibility. You have the power to make changes in the IA, and I implore you to use it. And I have this part of the consortium agreement, the one that is currently in place that has some of the powers listed that you have. You have the power, and I would say the moral obligation and responsibility to take action on just problems that are present in the IA. And I read on page 7 and page 16, there are two sections that I think are especially pertinent. Page 7 reads, each participating district will designate an administrative representative to serve on the Joint Steering Committee. The Joint Steering Committee will act as the principal policy-making body for the academy. I think the lack of attendance here, and we're talking about, do we want to cut down this board? Why are more people not wanting to come here and put their opinions in to helping a school that is great, but to be honest, it's not perfect. I went through it and I can tell you that. Page 16, section 2, academy principal, assistant principals, and employees other than certified teaching personnel. The academy principal and assistant principal shall be employed by the fiscal agent of the site to which they are assigned. Principals shall provide leadership and direction to the cooperative program to be operated pursuant to this agreement, and shall fulfill such duties as set forth in a job description approved by the fiscal agent and the Joint Steering Committee. Such job description may be modified at the discretion of the fiscal agent and the Joint Steering Committee. The Joint Steering Committee, by a majority vote, working in conjunction with the fiscal agent's personnel policies and procedures, will make recommendations to the fiscal agent about the employment status of the principal and assistant principal. Both decisions to offer a contract and terminate a contract will be made jointly between the Joint Steering Committee and the fiscal agent. There's more, I can go on. Basically, this is your jobs, and I ask you to take them seriously.
Thank you. Did you say? Is there anyone else that wishes to make a comment? Sir, in the front.
Excuse me. Hi. My name is Kevin Huang. I am an alumni of the International Academy Central Campus, and I graduated in 2017. I'm a rising junior at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and before college, I was a student in the Lake Orion Community School District, whose representative is sadly not here today. I came to Bloomfield Hills School Board meeting a couple of months ago now, or a couple of weeks or months ago, talking about problems regarding the mental health situation at the International Academy. And I started off there saying how much I appreciated the International Academy, its teachers, its curriculum, its students, its staff. And I still want to reiterate those beliefs of mine that the teachers and the students and everyone at the International Academy are second to none. They were fundamental to who I am as a person now and the successes I've had in my life. But I think it's also incredibly important for me to reiterate my concern for the mental health and well-being of the students at the International Academy, and implore all of you, the superintendents and leaders of the school districts of these kids, to take these concerns seriously. I don't know how many of you read through the entire resolution spread around by students at the International Academy a year after I graduated, but there's some pretty bleak statistics in there about suicidal ideation, self-harm statistics, depression, and I recommend all of you read it if you haven't. And I think that there is no reason to be doing any of this if the safety and well-being and the happiness of students are not put at the forefront of every single one of your concerns. These are your students, even if they don't go to your home high schools or aren't taught by your teachers, and they deserve the same amount of respect and consideration that you give to every other student. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Amelia Ascari, and I am a parent living in Franklin, which is part of the Birmingham district. I am the proud mother of two recent graduates of the International Academy Okemos campus. And I also am one of the clients of the Michigan State University First Amendment Law Clinic. In fact, I have brought a few copies of the complaint that was filed actually by Nancy Costello, professor and director of the Michigan State Law Clinic, on behalf of a group of community members. It includes myself and two other people who've already spoken here tonight, Ken Jackson and Layla Owens, as well as Jim Bry, the president of the PTIA on the West Campus. We're all named in this complaint. And Jim apologizes that he can't be with us tonight because a new parent orientation or welcome is scheduled on the West Campus this evening. So Professor Costello could not join us tonight because she's unfortunately teaching at this hour. So she did speak with your attorney, Mr. Lusk, earlier today, and she asked me to bring some copies of the complaint and to share it with you and with the audience. I want to say that it's 11 pages long. I have a few more copies. And I think probably I'll hand them out in the audience here because I have your email addresses and can email you a copy later this evening. There's also a couple hundred pages of backup documentation exhibits, and I did not print out any copies of that. The complaint does speak of intentionality, and so that is a thing that I think should really grab your attention. I want to point out that in a recorded interview with a student journalist, Asher Blucart of the Seaholm High School Highlander, Rob Glass, a few months ago, discussed whether there was ever any intent to revise the consortium agreement to make the Joint Steering Committee advisory only and therefore not subject to the Open Meetings Act. And Rob told Asher in a recorded interview that it never happened. And yet we find that when we received through the Freedom of Information Act and via a payment of several $1,000s, we received copies of the legal bills that the Bloomfield Hills School District has received over the years. That there were several times that Attorney Bob West and his firm and another law firm were paid to propose revisions to the consortium agreement that would in fact have made the Joint Steering Committee advisory only. So I'll let you read the rest of the backup material, but I do want to say that we have tried to open this meeting over a period of almost 5 years, and to say now that you're passing this resolution, it's a very minor act, and it's a little bit late, and there does appear to have been intention over the years to avoid public accountability for the International Academy. I want to echo the fact that I also think it's a wonderful school and it deserves your attention, and it has a lot to offer, though it is not perfect, and it does need more supervisory attention. Thank you.
Could you leave one print copy with my assistant, Paul, on that?
Sure thing.
Thank you. Other comments? Anyone else wish to address the committee? Okay, seeing none. At the beginning of the meeting, we had a proposal to add item 5.5 on our agenda, which would be the calendar of meeting dates. We can't vote on those now, but they've been suggested, and I believe we move ahead with the meeting to at least to start the year. So the meetings are listed as September 16th, host district Huron Valley, 6 o'clock p.m. December 16th, host district Birmingham, 6 o'clock p.m. March 9th, Bloomfield Hills, 6 o'clock p.m. And June the 9th in Troy, also at 6 o'clock p.m. Those will be noted in the minutes from tonight as our suggested future meeting dates. I'm assuming we'll move ahead with the September 16th date. We can vote on the official date and post those in each of our districts as we did today. Any other questions or concerns about the proposed meeting dates? Okay. There's no other business? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.